Please enjoy the webinar and reach out if you need any help and I'll be happy to assist. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Debs. Thank you very much. Mustafa, if you could present and I'll just do a quick introduction.
Yeah, sure. Actually, then I just connected with my mobile as well and I could see your deck. So
okay.
For mobile, it was good. Okay, right. So now I'm presenting my deck. Let me know when you guys can see.
We can
and
see
I
it.
can see that.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
I can see that.
That's important.
Okay. just before you go, just before you start. So welcome everybody, and thank you to Mustafa. And if any of you thought that I could talk a lot about data, well, here's someone who beats me. Mustafa, he even has a special channel called Let's Talk Data, and he's an author of a book called I Am Data, where he provides basically data definitions. It's a little bit like the Dama dictionary, but of course he keeps it up to date and things like that, which the Dama dictionary hasn't. So I've had a couple of interviews and discussions with Mustafa on talking about data, and I think one's coming up soon. But Mustafa, thank you for joining us and thank you for sharing. All yours, sir.
No, thank you so much, Howard, for inviting me on Dama, South Africa, and it's a pleasure to be here. I will talk about a little bit about my book as well, but again, thank you so much for having me. So I can start, right?
Yes, you can start.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. Again, my name is Mustafa Quizilbash, and as Howard mentioned, my bread and butter is data for last couple of decades. So before I jump into my introduction, so today our topic is about data practice management, as you can see on the slide. And when we talk about data practice management, which is the ecosystem of data in an organization, we need to understand what is the data practice landscape, because these are two different things. Because one is to manage it, second is the actual reality of platform and practice. And within this landscape, I categorize these two things into foundation of data practice. And the other term, I just wake up one day and I came to this formula called 4x4. So we will go through in detail what this 4x4 formula is. But before we jump into this whole thing, it's just a disclaimer over here is that whatever I'm going to present is just my experiences, and I'm not representing any entity whatsoever right now in this session. Yeah. So just a quick introduction for myself within 30 to 60 seconds, that I have around 22 years of experience, mainly all in data. I started my career, spent few years in my own country before I jumped into Singapore for around 5 to 6 years. And then I got an opportunity to be in New Zealand, where I spent 1.5 years over there, and then back to my country, where then I end up going into Myanmar, Dubai, and China, different places for data projects. And last but not the least, now I'm in Malaysia for last 6+ years. If I talk about where I worked, I've been directly or indirectly engaged with Oracle, IBM, Teradata. If I talk about vendors, I've worked with MCS, which is Singapore-based. Satyam, HCL is Indian-based companies. And if I talk about customers, I've worked with Hong Leong Bank and now Petronas in Malaysia. Little bit contribution from my end in data industry that I have come up with my own architecture, which is not part of this discussion today. So I've worked on it for 5 to 8 years to come up with this architecture, which I call DAS architecture. Then I also have come up with PVP approach, which is very similar to MVP, but it's the next version of that. So we won't go into details as well. And last but not the least, this 4-4 formula, which I have come up with in last 6 months, understanding this whole data practice. As Howard mentioned, I've written a book as well. I am Datapedia. For last 3-4 years, I have been releasing it every year. So this is the 4th version of it. The biggest part in this one is Bill Inmon also has contributed in this release, is going out this week or max next week. It has around 330 data and AI related topics. It's, again, as Howard mentioned, it's kind of a dictionary. So it's not like you pick up a topic, you implement something. It's all about what all data topics and AI topics are about. So I won't go into it. Last but not the least, I am running this data and AI podcast. I'll stay on the screen for next to 15 seconds for all participants to scan. It'll be great. You guys can subscribe, and I'm doing this podcast every week, and I'm meeting a lot of genius guys around the globe. The podcasts are consist of people from New Zealand, from Poland, from from even Brazil, from Italy, from Spain, from US. Howard is there. There are a couple of sessions with Howard as well. So it's a great journey for me for last 6 to 8 months, and I'm doing that. I hope you guys have scanned it, and at end of the day, this deck will be with you guys. Okay, now this is our agenda. So normally how I go through a deck. Now what I'll do in next 10 to 15 seconds, I'll just skim through the whole slides so you guys have an idea what we are going to do it. So I have this data practice management. I will show some Gartner numbers. I will mention why it is required to have a mature data practice management, why you need data practice management and data practice landscape. Then I will go through this whole slides. I'm going through intentionally very quick, so you guys have an idea what we are going to through. Then I'll show you the flow. Then I'll show you what is foundation, what is formulas. Then I'll tell you the personas as well and how four formula are good for persona level. So this is all I will go through into this deck. And last but not the least, this will be the Q&A session. Okay, now let's jump onto this first slide. Go back. Yeah. So, okay, awesome. So here we are. Let's start this journey now. So data practice management, right? I'll simply jump onto it why this idea came into my mind to draft it out and make it materialize, right? As you can see in Gartner, that 63% of organization either do not have or are unsure if they have the right data practice management. 63%, that's what Gartner said in February, right? And you can see through 2026, Gartner says that organization with abundant 60% of AI products. So this shows us that because of this new era of AI, right? Things are moving so fast that we need to have a framework. We need to have somewhere black and white where people can follow that. So what this data practice management, I'm sure 99% people already know what data practice management is, but let's quickly go through that. It is a holistic approach to managing, governing, optimizing data across the organization. So you need to know it's not only OLAP, you need to know the OLTP as well, the data from end to end, from application to OLTP to OLAP up to the Power BI. So all holistic data traveling is part of the data practice management. Then second one, we all know that to transform data for competitive advantage, then to bridge the gap between data collection, insight generation, and business value realization. The fourth point is very critical over here, critical in the age of AI, digital transformation, and real-time analytics, because this is current era where people are moving from centralized approach to federated approach, and an era has come where we are looking towards small data products. I will talk onto this. I have a slide on this one. Fifth is balance, agility, governance, compliance, and business analytics, alignment. The second last is addresses emerging challenges, data product stretch, regulatory pressures, and AI ethics. This is also very critical because last time when we had centralized approach, centralized team, one team manages everything, but now we will have tons small data products. So this regulatory pressures and ethics will become key. Last but not the least, enable sustainable growth, innovation, and responsible data usage in a dynamic landscape. So overall this is what data practice management. I see a question, but I will answer that. It just went out. So this is overall what data practice management is. So now, as I mentioned, before we jump into towards 4 formula, these are some of the numbers I have dig out from internet, and Gartner says that more than 50% of Gen AI project fails. Then here you can see Gartner predicts 80% of data AI initiatives will fail by 2027. Then if you see right bottom, you can see it says 85% projects will be fail due to poor data quality. When we say poor data quality is a very subjective word. So we can have a complete session on data quality. But once you go into 4-4 formula, you will understand that requirement gathering, planning it, very important. Yeah, Howard.
Yes, on your previous screen, I think you may have missed to say the word, but is it not? No. The one about governance failing. It seemed.
And this one here, is it?
No, it's the next one.
Gartner one, is it?
Yes, it's a Gartner
This one, is it?
There. So basically, that is saying that the governance initiatives will fail. Right.
Yeah.
So it's not so much the governance, the AI projects or the data and AI projects, but they're referring to specifically to governance. I'm a little bit interested in why did they mention governance? Is that just the inappropriate?
No, I have an answer for that as well. Because the moment we are going towards federated approach, there will be so many data products coming in. So data governance will become key. Even right now in centralized approach, there are a lot of loopholes. I think what they are predicting is tomorrow, in fact, today, AI era is here. So I will show a slide over there where AI era come up with small data products. So governance will become a biggest challenge actually.
Okay, so you're saying with the growth of data products, governance is going to fail, or is it due to the fact that it's the federation or decentralization that? So is it product or structure?
At least a structure to manage all products. You need a centralized governance. Normally we call it centralized governance and decentralized operations. So that's a very mix and match solution. I think William want to say something. William?
Yeah, so we all know project managers, right? We've all had to do a little bit of that kind of work at some point or another. Projects are governed on time and on budget, not on quality. And so I think that will play a lot into this particular problem as well.
You're right, William. As I mentioned, data quality is a very subjective thing because in centralized approach, we used to implement data quality in one product, which we used to implement enterprise data warehouse, right? We used to implement it into 1 or 2 years. So we used to implement everything. That's the key reason. A lot of time data quality budgets were cut off because you had one approach, you have to implement everything. Now, once you have n number of data products, so you have to be very critical to implement which level of data quality you need to implement. So data quality is based on domains, based on requirement. If you have a product which is life-threatening, you need die 100% or 99% quality. But if you have a data product which is just generating some kind of revenue numbers for a product, you might not need to implement a lot of quality. I can see another hands up. May I know who is it? Someone raised the hand. Yeah, Caroline. Yeah.
That's Caroline. Hi. Yeah, I think as well, the complexity of governance over data, especially for AI, is becoming incredibly difficult. There's so many changing compliance requirements.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, very little real overlap between traditional compliance functions and data management functions. I think to find a compliance officer that really understands data management is a hard ask. So I think there's going to be that complexity of what are we complying with is going to be fun.
Absolutely. So there won't be anything new, but we have to do everything what we used to do in past, multiply by number of product which is coming in federated approach. So I have a slide on that one as well where we can spend more time. This one, why we need mature data practice management. This is the slide I was talking about, right? That we are now entering the era of AI where AI agent and agentic AI. By the way, I'll be speaking on AI Summit on 8th of May on agentic AI as well, which is changing the whole, the paradigm of data products. Now, unlike the previous era, as you can see, where data was centralized and monolithic, this new landscape is driven by, small and purpose-built data products consumed, created, and acted upon autonomous AI agents. So this shift without strong data practice management, we will have a risk of fragmented data quality, poor data discoverability, governance blind spots, increase AI risk and bias broadcast. And data practice management become the foundation that enable high quality, reusable product, data accountability, life cycle ownership, and all other advantages. So that's the idea of having the data practice management. Again, it's not something new, it's being there, but now within the federated approach, we need to summarize, we need to bring it under one umbrella so everybody knows what we are going to do, what we are doing. So that's what now we are going to next slide, where we say to understand data practice management, one must first establish data practice landscape. Now, what is landscape, right? In 1.5 years back, when this Gen AI started coming in, that is where this whole thing come into the mind. That how to manage this whole data practice, right? So I have break down these things into couple of pillars. So this is our data practice landscape. Again, it's my experiences which I'm sharing. The first main activities within data practice landscape or data practice management are BAU activities. Now, what BAU activities, for example, ethical data governance and global compliance, crisis and incident management, emerging technology strategy, data culture, literacy, enablement, and external data monetization and partnership. So these are not limited to this. These are traditional what normally CDOs and data leaders do. I call it as foundation of data practice. That these are all day-to-day jobs every data manager or CDO do to run the show. But that was past. It will still remain with it, but that is past. But what is coming now, which will really create the value out of data, is this next piece, which I call it value driven activities, which is 4x4 framework. I have divided that into 4 core dimensions, which I call it 4-4 formula. Again, disclaimer is not something new. I just try to bring things into one place so it can systematically can be managed. So first core dimension, I call it as data product lifecycle and problem solving focus. Second one, I call it from inquiry to value creation. Third one, I call it, this is a data storytelling, decision-making context. And last but not the least is the impact and governance. Now, what these things are, I will go into details because that is what our topic is. But high level, so let me show you the flow as well. So that is how you can see on top is data practice management. So foundation of data practice and 4x4 formula works together. 4x4 formula needs foundation of data practice. If you don't have foundation of data practice, you will end up going into compliance issues. So right side is to deliver, left side is to manage. We'll go into details. Again, it's just a disclaimer over there. These activities are not limited to these. Based on different organizations, working practices, these can differ. Now, if we look into a little bit more detail, just for the sake of showing it that data culture and literacy enablement promotes a data culture, data-driven culture, enhancement data literacy. Although data-driven culture, now this term is also changing. This term is going towards value-driven culture rather than data-driven culture, because value-driven culture is based on the use cases, which is federated. Data-driven culture is something from centralized. I haven't changed it. I don't want to confuse people. Second is emerging technology strategy. Define a data and AI and automation, addressing AI ethics and bias risk. External data monetization, we're used to sell the data to external parties to gain some monetary benefit. Incident manage day-to-day jobs, anything fails, we fix it. Ethical data governance and global compliance, which includes adhering to evolving regulation, implementing ethical data practices. So these are the things we have been doing that from day one. Chief data officers and data leaders have been doing that, and these will continue. Now we come up to 4-4 formula. That is where we will spend more time. I'll be happy. You guys can jump in, ask some questions, and we can spend more time over here. So, okay. So as you can see, it goes from top to bottom: data, product lifecycle, and problem solving focus. So all these core dimension, each core dimension, I bring in 4 sub dimension in each core dimension. When I say product lifecycle and focus solving focus, let's spend a little bit time over here because this is basic. I feel again, working in data industry for a couple of decades, right? I feel that within an organization, all data products fall into these 4 categories. As you can see on this first one, I would say, so let's say this on shelf, second one. What does this mean? Means all those products, as Gartner says, somewhere, I could not find the exact report. It says somewhere 75% of data products sits on shelf. So the second one, you can see one of the biggest challenge nowadays is products get implemented and it sits on shelf, because we all know that the failure, second name of the failure nowadays is on shelf. You implement it, you don't use it, let it be there. It's consuming cloud expenses, but it is very critical to identify all those products which are in production on shelf, not meeting the ROI. So this is one of the major critical first subdimension of this core dimension. Second, which is, hey, you guys cannot see my screen, my pointer, right? Where is my pointer? Yeah, this one, optimize existing. So second, the most important I see is all those products which are there, which had high value, those are in production and having problems. So this is the second dimension where data leaders and especially CDO role should look into it. First one was looking onto product which are sitting on shelves. Second one are those which are very good products. When they started, it had a good value, but there are issues started coming in. Sometimes those have challenges, sometimes technology has changed. We all know that years back, 6 months back, Gen AI came. So a lot of products which has the value, they were built on technology 1, but technology 2 has come before the ROI is met. And sometimes it goes into production after huge data set comes in, the performance goes down. If you want a batch of 8 hours, we have seen the batch is running 12 hours and 14 hours, it's breaching the batches. So data leaders has to look into these challenges as well and fix it. Third one, which is in this list, the first one, develop data products for new use cases. These are those data products which business knows that this is what our use cases is, but they are not sure about the technology. And that is very true in current era where every 3 to 6 months, new, better, and cheaper technology is coming. So business is running their business. They are not sure, they are not up to the mark which technology to use. That is where it's a responsibility of chief data officer or data leaders to fulfill those requirements for the business. Last but not the least, discover and advocate opportunities, products not in view. As I mentioned, that every new products are coming. So it's a responsibility of CDO and data leaders to find out use cases from the global market and present to business. Hey, business, this is a new use case. This is a better and cheaper way to fulfill a business requirement. So these are the 4 starting point. As you can see, all 4 are directly going into the next core dimension, means all these can run in parallel, is based on the organization's priorities. Few organizations focus on new products. Few organizations focus on cutting down the cost, where you have to decommission a lot of data products, right? So it depends what is organization's motive and the structure to manage. So all these 4. Any questions before I jump to the next one?
Yes, Mustafa, I just wanted to, you seem to present the order of the data products in a different one to the way in which they're displayed. So you spoke
Yeah,
on the shelf challenges, new,
yeah,
and then new products in view. Is
yeah.
there a reason for using that order?
It's not in order. It can be anywhere
Okay.
actually.
All right.
Yeah.
But it's the importance is products on shelf, products with challenges, not in view, and then in view. Is that your
No,
priority?
no, actually it depends on the organization. If organization is cutting down the cost, they will
Right.
definitely
Okay.
jump onto the on shelf.
Okay.
But if
Okay.
organizations are not jumping, they will say, hey, bring us new use cases. They don't care about that.
Right.
William.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, William.
One of the challenges that I've run into quite a bit is where a data product was available. A few of the parts of the business chose to use a part of the data product or whatever. It wasn't documented. Then at a later stage, somebody comes along and says, no, well, no, nobody's using this. They remove it, the data flows break, and then we have all sorts of crises. So I think one of the biggest challenges, along with what you're talking about here, is the documentation of what was done, what is
Yeah.
there, and who's been using that stuff.
You're absolutely right, William. I'm writing a book on this one as well, where I'm going and elaborating each and every piece. As you correctly mentioned, the moment you start thinking to decommission a product, it's not simply switch off the button. No, you have to go back and see why this product was created, what was the value. Who knows, you want to decommission it, but if you make certain changes, it will become one of the most value generation product. You never know. You have to connect with the businesses, you have to connect with the stakeholders. So a lot need to be think before you decommission any product. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, 100%. One of the ways to do that is to find out what's happening on that database, if it's actually moving.
Yeah. So see, all kind of, there's another very good product coming into the market, which we call it uh, strategy op. This term is coming. One of our friend Nicholas in France, he has come up with a product called as UEYOOI. So this is a
Yeah.
very amazing tool. Yeah, Howard, you know that, right? So
Yeah,
this
he's actually
tool,
presented. He's presented on here. Yeah.
presented already. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that tool as well. That strategy op concept is a must have for every organization who have data and AI, especially in coming era. Okay, awesome. So I think we can move to the next one. Next one is question, answers, action, and value from inquiry to value creation. This is again, for me, is a startup for any new initiative. If a business do not know what questions they want to ask from a data product, no point going in. First of all, business or stakeholder, whoever are requiring or expecting a data product, they need to know what questions they want to ask. Then they need to know based on based on the questions, what are the answers they are expecting. You already should know what answer you are expecting. Then based on the answers, you should already have a list of actions to take on that answers. These three steps, die has to be there. And the fourth is not less than anything, is the most important, that value. So the action which you do, what value it will generate. So these core four sub-dimension of the second core dimension also very key, because your product has to have a value. When it has to have a value, you have to do something. Based on some actions, definitely you can have value. You cannot have a value on the fly, right? So these four sub-dimension are the start of any data product. There's a guy called the guy Shane Gibson from New Zealand. I'm not sure, Howard, you met him. He has come up with information product canvas. Awesome framework. He has 12 canvases over there. He built up this whole, he fixed this problem statement for the requirement gathering. It's an awesome canvas. So I learned that from him. And these are also inspiration from that as well. Any question on this four subdimension from any of the participants here before I jump to the next one?
So the question from me, Mustafa, and I see you got decision making, but surely it's about what are the decisions we need to make, and then sort of what are the questions around making that decision. So what happened? So where's the decision in this? Because a lot of it's about
Actions.
business decisions, right?
Yeah. So actions are your decisions, right? Because if you want to take a decision is an action, right? So you want to buy something, right? So you want to ask a product some question. Product will give you some answer. Based on that answer, you will take a decision. So decision is your action actually. And based on that decision, some value should be generated. Yeah, names can be different. Term names can differ here and there. But this is the, I would say, crux
Okay.
of the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. And Caroline Mouton may ask them, and I wanted to get the name of the person in New Zealand, the canvas you were referring to. Is it possible for
Shane,
you to put it into the chat so that we can all just check
I'll
that out?
I'll put it in the chat, Mustafa. I
Remco,
can, no problem.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Remco. Thank you very much.
Shane Gibson, yeah.
Shane Gibson. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. William.
Mustafa, in terms of that value, right? One of the biggest challenges that I've run into is that you get people who really just kind of want everything, and they haven't thought through what it costs you, how much effort it is, and all the rest of it. So I put together a complexity calculator, which then gave me a figure roughly, and I said, well, okay, this is going to cost the company X £1,000. Are you prepared to pay it out of your budget? And you get a very, very quick, no, it's not that important. And I just wonder whether or not in your value, you're only looking at the value to the business, or you're looking at whether or not people have thought through whether there's real value there.
Yeah, that is covered as well. It'll come into the last one where we are mentioning ROI. Yeah. So let's go to the next one. Yeah. Because once you have a value, you are absolutely right. You need to map it with the expenses as well. Because value is, of course, is a profit, is a margin, right? So if we go to the next one, this is where storytelling comes. So right on top, what we did is we found the pillar, what we want to do. We want to decommission a product. We want to fix a product. We want to build a product where business knows the use case, but do not know the technology. Or we want to bring up a use case or product which even business is not aware because of changing horizon. Once we take that decision, then we start finding, okay, what are the question, answer, action, and value of this product? Once that is done, then we create a story. When we create a story, we identify stakeholders. Of course, when we ask the questions, we knew what stakeholders were. Then based on that second core dimension, we create a context. We create a context that what the whole vision of this product. Third one is risk. Risk is a little bit confusing. It's actually COI, which is cost of inaction. This is not that risk. When you create a product, it's a risk. It's a risk. Those risks if you don't implement a product. So you need to know that if someone coming up with something, they say, hey, it can generate this value, but it is if it is not impacting the business, then maybe C-level will not budget that. Last but not the least, resolution. So you have the stakeholder, you have the vision, context, you know what cost of inaction is, and then you have to present how you will implement it. The road to the resolution, you need to have that plan as well. So you have covered these three. Coming to William, your question, which will be covered here. So once you know the action plan, how you're going to implement, the next is, of course, you will know domains. You will know who is the domain owner. But last two is very important, time to market and ROI. ROI is where you calculate everything, cost, operations, time to market. If your product can generate $1 million in a year, and it takes 2 years to fulfill ROI, like cost is 2 million, revenue you are generating 1 million. After second year onwards, you will start generating the value. that how you can trim down the TTM. The shorter the TTM is, the earlier your ROI can map. So all these planning need to be there before you start a journey onto a product. So we will come back onto this slide for a detailed question here. Before we jump into the next one, I want to bring this organization personas as well. That how personas look into it. There are 4 categories normally: strategic leadership, executive roles, business roles, and enablement and overseas role, which is governance and transformation. How these roles look like? These roles something look like this: that you have CEOs, you have CDOs, you have CAO. Nowadays, a new role coming, CAIO role, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. Those roles are also surfacing. Head of governance, data stewards, product owners, business analysts, data scientists, and all these. And from this 4-to-4 formula, not everything is applicable or required or reviewed or agreed or whatever you want to say by everyone. No. Let's take an example of CEO. When a product goes through a CEO, right? First thing normally is what CEO asks. Again, a disclaimer, different organizations behave differently. It's just an example. Normally CEOs are interested into new products. What new products can bring value into an organization? The moment you say that, CEOs are normally interested into value. They normally don't care who will do what the action, what the answer, what are the questions. They simply say, okay, you're going to implement a product, what value you're going to bring to the organization. After that, then they say, what is the context? Okay, what is the COI risk if we don't implement? And how you're going to implement? CEO will ask this. And then CEO will, of course, ask you what domain this product belongs to. Is it procurement? Is it finance? Is it marketing? Is it sales? What domain? How much time you're going to implement it? TTM. And last but not the least, ROI. So C-level CEO normally, again, these can differ based on the organizations. Different organizations work in different manners, different C-level work different manner. I just put it as an example. So same goes, different roles will look into this 4x formula into different ways. So, yep, I think this is, where is my mouse? Yeah. So this is the persona level mapping of 4x4 formula for the execution of data products. Howard, how much time we have? If I'm not wrong, okay.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes for.
Okay.
For
awesome.
Yeah.
Good timing then. It means we are here. We have 4x4 formula on our right. I think we can open this floor for the question here, and do subscribe my channel. Yeah, William.
So if you go back to your 2 slides, I think it is. One more. No, one more. Yeah, there we go.
4x4. Right?
That value point that you're referring to there is a step in the data product development, which is the ideation step. In other words, we are now coming up with the idea of doing this. So before you even get to a business case and all the rest of it, you go through some of this thinking in your top 2 boxes. So what I've found is that if I push back at that value point that you've got, where you've got that little pointer on at the moment, right?
Yeah.
If I push back at them to actually test whether or not this idea is something they've really thought through carefully, or if it's really that important, or if it's really not, it's saved us and the company a lot of time and resources. And because some people are cowboys, right? They just want whatever they want. And it came up with a good idea that morning. They didn't think it through. And they may be the one who speaks the loudest, so they kind of get all the resources. But if you push back at that point, you can save yourself a lot of trouble later.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. See, when we talk about this second core dimension, which is from inquiry to value creation, this is something you're talking to business. And Mustafa can come up with an idea and Mustafa can say, hey, let's build this product, it will generate $100 million. So this is the value coming from that, but that's not the reality. The moment I go into the next one, which is decision-making contacts, that is where I will go into a road to resolution. When I go to road to resolution, that is where I will come to know, hey, Mustafa, your product is not generating 100 million value because there are a lot of cost involved into it. There are a lot of your product, whichever product you have trying to implement, there is no such technology in the market. I can give you an example. Right now, Gen AI solution or a use case is very famous. Within Gen AI, we all know ChatGPT is Gen AI solution, but ChatGPT is mostly on unstructured data. This LLM basically works on unstructured, but people are looking towards throwing or pouring in structured data as well as into the LLM world and trying to get the accurate results. That's not going to happen because many organizations, most of the, as you William correctly mentioned, every business normally want to fulfill KPIs and they are say, hey, whatever are structured data, why to create a dashboard? Just simply ask the ChatGPT. So that is where data leaders and CDOs role come into picture, where they go and find out which technology, which is this one, new products in view, which means business knows what use case they want, but they are not sure about the technology because we all know that currently our data ecosystem is run by or driven by or steered by product-based companies. And we, as I mentioned, technologies are changing so fast, and it's not a lie, or it's not a makeup thing that every 3 to 6 months, a better and cheaper technology is coming. So when you map your TTM and ROI, you have to be very careful. Last time, what we knew that if a product is built for 100K and it's generating 300K, so 2 or 3 times value was good enough. Now, no more. Your value should be tenfold more because the moment you will meet your ROI, there might be 5 iterations required into the journey before your ROI map. So yeah, there are a lot of thought process need to go in once we go into AI era. I have another Michael. Yeah. A question from Michael.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes,
Yep,
we
yep.
can, Michael.
Yeah,
Loud and
just a
clear.
quick one. Yeah, I have some issues with my mic. That's why I always ask. Sorry about that. So when you look at this value creation stage, this from inquiry to value creation, I think in my mind, I've seen typically there's more than four, but 4 ways in which people are addressing this problem. So the first is using this simple analogy. I want to have better, faster, cheaper data. The second is I want to use that to make better, faster, cheaper decisions, then make better, faster, cheaper actions, and sometimes enable me to deploy or utilize products better, faster, cheaper. And of course, then the other one is, and that is underpinned by resources. Somehow the synergistic interaction of these things helps you to have better, faster, cheaper resources. So from your perspective, when you're dealing with the clients in this area, when you're looking at value creation, the ways that you view the value that's taken from either making a decision or having better quality data, if you think of this as distinct sort of layers of the cake, where would you think most of the time the people you interact with sort of spent in that? You see what I mean? Are they looking really at the data itself, or they're looking more at the types of products they can launch and what the data is telling you about which products do well, when, et cetera, or are they looking at the types of actions that they can take and minimizing regret or minimizing pain from their day-to-day operations? It's just an interesting discussion I wanted to bring to the table.
Yeah, you're right. Better, faster, and cheaper, right? It's a triangle.
Yes.
And we all know that if you need better and faster, it won't be cheaper. So these out of these triangle, 2 are possible, all 3 are not possible. We all know that. It's a wish list from business, right? Although I am from business as well, but I'm from data world as
Although,
well.
having said that, though, you make a point. But the thing is, if you remember your old economics, right, wherever
Yeah.
you have this kind of downward sloping curve that requires some sort of trade-off, that curve itself can be shifted to the upwards to the right or downwards to the left. And to the degree that we always have these trade-offs, there's also this question of how can we shift that downward sloping curve sort of to the right, that for every trade-off we make, we get a higher return, so to speak. Do you see what I mean? Sometimes it's both that as well. But anyway, there's just something to think about. Yeah.
No, you are absolutely right. While doing my podcast, I've came up of this graph theory thing actually, and I've become very, very fond of it. Graph theory, and there's a data modeling technique called as FCOIM, which is before logical modeling.
Okay.
So that has changed my whole perspective actually. I'm also creating an implementation framework where I feel when you do requirement gathering, which is information product canvas by Shane Gibson, and which is our second core dimension, which is inquiry to value. Once you are done with this one must create a graph theory. And graph theory include FCOIM. Organization level, if not organization level, domain level, sales domain should have their own graph theory. Procurement should have their own graph theory. Marketing can have their own graph theory and all connect each other. Once you have graph theories presented, approved by business, then you start creating the product. When you say product start with data modeling. So it depends, as you mentioned, Michael, it depends what value you are creating, because a lot of people also think value is if you're spending $1 and you're generating $2, it's a value. But you have to look into it. As I mentioned, now technology is shifting so much. The moment you reach 2, in middle technology changed 3 times. So who knows, your $1 converts to $4 and your RI is not going to meet. So you have to go strategically implement data products. Traditional way, it might not be possible to implement data product just like we used to do in past, where we used to create a one big 3NF. The things might change. You might end up, or I think in my personal point of view, you will end up creating small data models into the data preparation layer. When I say data preparation layer, we know where we have a landing layer, we have a staging layer, we have a transform layer. Within the transform layer, there are 2 layers. There are data preparation layer and there's a semantic layer. Within data preparation layer, you can have a Bill and Mon 3NF, you can have data vault, you can have focal, you can have anchor, you can have any data modeling technique over there. And then you can create a semantic layer where I'm a big fan of dimensional modeling. On N kind of, there is hooks, there is Papini bridge, all those can be created into semantic layer. So you have to go towards, the era has come where the product size will be very small. Because of that, values will become smaller and more achievable. I hope I am able to answer you, Michael.
Yes. No. Thanks for that.
Sorry,
Awesome.
Michael. Sorry, Michael. Just a question there. I mean, it seems like you're also talking about the different value propositions that CDOs may choose to offer their business, or the business may select. So that would be, is it about being able to get the data as quickly as possible whenever I need it, or the ability to understand my data? Is that not, is that the sort of question that you're looking at? I wasn't sure whether I fully understand the different forms of better, faster, cheaper.
So I was looking at it from first principles. So when you have a business, typically you want to be able to make the right decisions to be able to get the best revenue you can at the least cost in
Right.
general. And
Right.
depending on the organization you're working on, they will have a problem. The problem might be that they're not executing properly. Maybe they have the data, but they can't mine it properly. Some organizations have intuition, but they don't have any formal data to help guide them. And there are some organizations who are doing stuff, but it's just way too expensive. They want to be able to get it done at a cheaper place. Or I've been in some cases where I was working on risk systems when it was taking them 18 hours to calculate their value at risk, so they couldn't report,
Right.
time. So there are always different types of problem that they're trying to solve. And when we come in with data-focused solutions, we're really trying to take them from whatever problem they have to how we can solve it with the data. And in some cases, we sort of abstract over one layer to focus on one layer. If the problem is decision making, then we sort of abstract over the other layers and just sort of help them focus on how to make better decisions. How would you make a better decision? If you had more granular data, would that help you? If you have some data on this aspect that you're missing, would that help you, et cetera, et cetera. So there's always a focal point, as Mustafa mentioned. And sometimes it varies from firm to firm, but I'm just curious because it might be that over his experience or someone else's experience, they've seen that in most organizations where they've been consulting, it's typically focused in one particular area. And this is the area where there's the most value can be added, seeing as that's the area where most businesses struggle, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. But thanks, Howard, for asking for clarification. Thank you, Mustafa, for answering that question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, William has a question. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges I find is that the elephant in the room that's kind of completely ignored is when you're having conversations with IT, when you're having conversations with business, both of them somehow believe that the data quality is 100% perfect. And they talk about the tech, they talk about the process, they talk about all these things, but they never get into the quality of the data. Now, I worked on a particular piece of work where they implemented an SAP tool and then discovered once they'd done that, they hadn't even started getting the master data right to put into that tool. So they set spending money on paying for all the SAP fees, the consultants, while everybody ran around like headless chickens trying to get data from 34 different systems into one master system. Now, to me, when you're going to fix a problem, the first question you've got to ask is the data of a quality that we should even go down this road, or you're going to fix the stuff first?
Oh, okay. This is a very good point, right? You brought in master data. So yeah, master data is one of the biggest thing you need to look into this AI era. Because master data normally, as you mentioned, is required when you have cross systems decisions coming in. If you have a product coming from one POS and the same product coming from another POS or another channel, then you need to have a master data. But in small product, just a question mark, because once you start creating a small product, your decision might be coming from a one source system or maximum two source system, and there might not be a requirement of master data. When I say master data, we all know is a very expensive tool. It's a solution itself. When you have enterprise decisions, which I call it, so normally I divide data products into two ecosystems. One is enterprise product, second is business products. So enterprise products, it's a traditional enterprise warehouse where all products, all domains come into one place and you create a one unified model and you do a one unified reporting for C-level, MDs and director. That is where your master data is required. But consider like this, if a product is if in business tenant kind of stuff, if your product is a small product which needs through 2-3 entities and maybe couple of products, you might not need master data. Maybe I'm right, I'm wrong. Remco has enabled him. I think he want to put in something there. Yeah, Remco.
First off, I think that William is absolutely right on master data should be in place and should definitely be in here somewhere. I agree with you. If you wanted to go full master data management with tools, etc., you're probably going to end up in a road which never ever going to happen.
Yeah.
At least as far as I know. But master data management is not a tool. Master data is nothing about a tool. It's all about the stuff we all agree upon. Hey, especially when you do data product, right? This is a data product. This is all around customer. This is where we say this is correct. This is what we're talking about. So it's more about all the stuff surrounding it. Is who can change a piece of data, who can, where is it relating to, and how, etc. I think that on the master data management level is more important than the actual tool. My experience as well is I don't want to go for full master data management definitions from any of the products which are important, because it's a long road and probably not what you want. So I'm kind of feeling with you on that one. But again, master data on itself is master data management is not just a tool. It's a whole process which is a long road to go for. But the same token, it is very important to at least make that discussion, because if you're talking about anything where there's more than one source involved, you should have your definitions done and you should have your discussions done, which all are basically master data management discussions and decisions.
Yeah, just to
Remco,
add it here, right? Just to add it here, as Remco mentioned, right? If you end up see what is ground reality? Master data is nothing more than finding a golden record. But finding a golden record is also an art, right? It's not easy. You need to understand all source system and data modelers over there. So I hardly seen a complete MDM implemented in an organization. It's $1 million solution. Your ROI will never meet. Your most of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, someone can pitch in as well. If you want to implement a organizational level MDM or master data, in other words, you need a group level investment. And there is no win. It's a shared win. When there's a shared win, very difficult to get the budget out of it, right?
No, you're 100% right, Mustafa. So one of them on my side was actually group implementation.
Yeah,
So yes, two of them were group implementation. To Remco, to your point though, one of my challenges was if they do not do the definition of those terminologies, etc., right, my lineage and my downstream flows going through various other things, mixing calculation in the warehouse, going into reports, Power BI, their selection, their misunderstanding of the terms, pulling in, and then presenting to the business then picking it up, running with it, making bad decisions, which then go back into the system. And then, of course, you have even more challenges. So for me, I lean on your side there, Remco, where you're talking about the fact that you need to define what it is that's going to come in, even if it's just a small product. One of my biggest challenges was a very small product that brought in a field that was used all over the business. And they made a change in there, and that just rippled through everything, creating havoc. So we have to have some kind of centralized control over this.
And I agree absolutely on that one, William. Thank you very much also for confirming that one. Again, I think it's very important. And well, I already did some talks about my approach on this one, right? It's the ELM approach where it's not full-grown master data management for sure, but there's some kind of a business glossary in place where you could make that decisions and definitions, and having the lineage is a very important thing. And I think that is really going back from your Power BI report back to the source, but with the same token, more important, from the source to all your reporting and to your warehousing. And luckily, there's more and more you automate your tooling. It's possible to not only do lineage backward, but also lineage forward. Because what you're saying is, I saw that as well, my experience. Someone changed just some field in the source, and then it ended up with messing up a whole bunch of reports and dashboards because they didn't understood that information was used downstream. So you should go to both directions.
Sorry, guys. I think we're going a bit off topic. Let's just
get back here.
Let's
Hey,
just
let's
come
talk
back.
about
We can have an
data, right?
offline chat. That's William, yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. Are there any other questions? Carl, I saw you had a question on semantics and conceptual and things like that. I think it was in terms of the order of those platforms. Is there something more that you'd like to discuss in that area?
Thanks. The question I think I would want to ask is, there's something I came across called active benefits realization, and there's a whole sort of this books on that as well. It's a bit reactionary in that ROI things are usually sort of used. It's a political game. It's used to justify decisions that are already taken. So I think the active benefits realization movement is basically a reaction to gaming the numbers of ROI and say it's also more in terms of what they call formative assessment as opposed to summative assessment. So it's not dealing in absolutes, but basically bringing more people along in the investment decision. So that's more of the question is, Mustafa, have you come across ABR versus ROI, or is it French?
Maybe I'm not getting your exact question. Maybe someone can.
So yeah, so I've tried to put a chat. I try to put some co-pilot definition of active benefits realization. I agree with Carl because lots of people are casting doubt on ROI. They're saying it's a sort of sometimes an incomplete view. I think that's what some of the comments I've heard about the term, the use of the ROI calculation, because everyone sort of says, this is when it's the right ROI, then we go with it. I think, Carl, is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, that's how I came across it, is basically as a reaction to that sort of gaming the numbers and a post facto justification for political decision. I don't know if it's a reflection on our environment and our investment decisions are taken, but yeah.
Yeah, Carol, you are right. I have seen examples where, especially with the introduction of this Gen AI solutions, where people want to throw all kind of data into a chart or vector and try to get answer, right? So one of the project, I give you an example that it went into, one of my colleague was working into a different organization. They calculated the cost. Initially, business says they have a high ROI, they are generating billions of dollars. So when they went in and they tried to calculate actual, they came to know that the solution is around $3 and $4 million. But what they were actually saving was 2% cost, 2 resource cost, because that 2 resources were doing some manual work and they want to automate it. And the ROI, what they were saying is what these two people are doing, and whatever the value they were generating, they were calculating that value into ROI, which is wrong actually. Because once you're implementing a product, you are not generating that value. You are replacing these two people only. And two people cost you how much? $20,000-$30,000 a month, right? So you are absolutely right. To calculate an ROI, there has to be frameworks, and there are many frameworks in the market, which every organization have different ways to calculate. So I agree with you, Carol. Yeah, there are different ways, different political things which people play around. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
awesome. I think any other questions, and I hope everybody would have already subscribed, which is on your screen.
There's one more question, from Samabo,
please.
and then we'll close.
Yeah, I'm good. If you guys have time, I'm good with the time. No issues. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Mustafa. Thank you for the presentation and
Pleasure.
Everyone's contributions. It's just a note with regards to the point on data quality that I've seen that some of the issue, stem from the management itself. So there is, I'm not sure if anyone has come across this book by Peter Sanger, who writes about the art of learning organizations. And one of the limitations he puts there is the concept of I am my position, which sometimes shows itself in, I think it's common, in all of us to unconsciously have that mindset in our roles. But the downfall is that in some cases you become so identified with your position and your what you perceive your responsibility to be, that you don't see the bigger picture, which is hindering the organization. So I mean, there are cases where data quality initiatives uncover like serious problems, but because the management or the leader is obsessed about looking good, and those issues end up being brushed under, or they're not taken seriously enough. I've been in a situation where the finding of of a modeling approach turned out to be not, a good one in the long term, with some limitations. But because some of the things have been done this way for a while, there was such a resistance to change that, because now, I mean, it makes us look bad, right? So it was quite an interesting thing to note that, some of the change when it comes to, like, implementing data quality issues is, a change in mindset about this concept.
You're absolutely right. Right in the start of the session, Howard raised this thing as well about data governance, Gartner number, right? That is where one of the biggest challenge which I also foresee is, if you don't have a right mindset of implementing right data quality standards, you are not going to meet your ROIs from small products. Every product will have their own standards of data quality. Again, data quality is very subjective. And within data quality, I categorize into two pieces. When you transform your data from landing to staging, you have data quality standardization rules. For example, multiple date formats, null character, special character, data type change, code value changes, reference rate, all these are standardization of data quality. Yes, these will be there, but there are other data qualities. Change Mustafa name to right spelling, code calculations of data quality, patching of data quality. So every data product need to have their own data quality standards. And you are also right that the mindset has to change. And in past, senior data roles have been more focused on BAU activities. See, that is why in my data practice landscape, I categorize into two pieces. One is BAU activities, which is foundation of practice. Second is value generation. Value generation is right on your screen. But BAU activities has to be very objective. It cannot be subjective anymore. Yeah.
And maybe just to keep on with that, because I think what Sonava is bringing up is sometimes we battle with governance, quality, because people themselves are concerned or worried that they are going to be made to look bad, or things are going to come back to them in terms of that situation. And so it's all sorts of funny activities that happen, not wanting to raise the issues that governance requires in those areas. So certain people, certain business tend to mask that issue, and so there's a culture of within there that also affects the running of these things.
You're right. See, you can see the second core dimension where question and answers. Once you already know the answer, right, then you already know the standard of data quality you need. Because having a right name for an insurance company might not matter, but having a right name to sell some product to a customer might need a correction. So you need to have an answers. If a product coming in, customer must or business must tell you what they want to get an answer out of the product. That is very important from small products.
Yeah, Mustafa, you're right. But there's another side to it, and that is, if you know, because what happens with data, right? Most of the people focus on the systems going from source through to report. What happens then is that it goes into the minds of people. People have conversations, which is also data. It's just sound or it's light data or whatever. It's still data. Then it gets to another human being. That other human being has a conversation. Then it goes back in the systems, right? So it's actually a closed system of data. And one of the challenges that I have is that we might have a small product, and the quality for that small product might be low. It's not really necessary for that particular field. It's not that important.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say quality, I'm talking more on, yes, Mustafa's name is spelled correctly, rather than is it a null field or whatever the case is, right? And then what happens is that people have a look at that. And once they've had a look at that information, they then go to other systems and they start to work with them, where those systems need a higher quality. And because there's no lineage that flows beyond just the source to report and flow back through business process to all the other areas, you can't actually see what's needed. And then you get contamination coming in from business process back into the systems. And that creates a closed system challenge, right? Remember that if I say 80% quality is fine, that's on the first pass. Because it's a closed system, next time that data comes past and I apply 80%, I'm going to get 64% quality.
No, you're right. Yeah. Just to add it here, right? What you are referring is a centralized approach, I would say, because if I created a product for my answers and actions, tomorrow, if you want to use that product for your requirement, then the quality was not built for your question. You have to send a new questions to the product development team to fulfill your answers on that one. It's a different ball game itself. That's the beauty of give and take of small products. Small products are very focused to absolute answers and action.
What you're saying is right. But the challenge is the small product is part of an ecosystem of all the products. And there's data flow that moves through those small products, through meetings, through people, through etc., back into other systems and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be an overarching some kind of a conversation that needs to happen at a data level to say, yes, you can have low quality on that, nobody else uses it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, could we I don't think we've answered Sonwabo's question, and that's sort of, I think we went off tangent again. Sonwabo, I mean, my understanding of what you're saying is due to the state or the culture of the people within the organization, we're picking up challenges from a people point of view and not, I mean, you know, they are preventing us from addressing the issue, right? Is that what you're saying, Sonwabo? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, spot on, Howard, exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly where I was coming in from.
But just wait, William, just wait. Okay, so let's just take it one step at a time. So then the question to Mustafa is, how does this 4x4 deal with it in terms of that challenge that you're seeing? That's the trying to understand it, Mustafa. How do you bring these issues within your framework? And I think I heard you saying that's a business as usual thing. So maybe we can just clarify that.
Yeah, see, all these issues, political issues, and people want to do their wish list has to map with this second core dimension, which is this one. If you don't have question and answer, because last time we used to build our ecosystem from bottom to top. When I say bottom to top means we used to bring everything in, and then we used to question and answer. And we used to expect data as high quality. When you expect data is high quality, then quality need to be very high because anybody can ask any questions. That's not true anymore. That's a centralized approach. When you go towards federated approach, which is a managed environment of decentralized approach, where small data products. So every product need to have their own question and answers. If someone else want to pull data from that product, that's a separate ballgame, right? So now, even though you're doing that, if I go back to my slide where I have this whole system, this one, where I'm saying foundation of data practice. Here you can see data culture and literacy. It is very important because if your enablement is thinking of centralized approach, then people will expect a master data or golden record from a small product. That's not true. It's not going to happen. One product, a sales manager need a small product. And remember that there is a debate on data products. What is a data product? Data product can be anything which is based on the data. A one dashboard can be a data product, and a one big portal can be a data product. Data product is very much dependent on question and answers.
Okay, so just to summarize your view on that thing is you're saying yes, data culture and literacy enablement is very important, but you're also saying that dependent on the size of the product and dependent on the role of the product, then the quality definitions are changing dramatically, or the
Yes.
very quality expectations of that product.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Because if you have actions, right, your actions are dependent on your answers, and your action will be as good as the quality of the answer you're getting from a product. Right. And you are already telling before we start a product creation, you're already telling the execution team that this is the answers you are expecting. See, n number of answers were expected from centralized approach, where you used to build from bottom to up, bring sales data, bring marketing data, bring customer data, bring product data, and you start asking questions. So that is where the quality was very subjective. You want everything to be absolute. Now, no more.
Okay,
Now,
so help me, and I think this is where I'm missing the gap is we're talking about a culture issue, and now we're going to the different levels of quality by product, and I'm missing that relationship between culture challenges that we're facing that Sunwabo is bringing and different requirements for different products, because even with us, when not all data is the same, so we can enable certain data that doesn't need to go through that rigorous thing, and others that don't have to. But I'm not sure I understand your connection
with data culture. Okay, let me rephrase myself. See, when we say data culture, right, till now we had a centralized approach. The culture was IT will bring data for me. That was the culture, right? When IT will bring data for me, our expectation was IT knows everything.
right.
IT have subject areas. So when you expect something, you expect it's a high quality.
Right.
Right? Like Gen AI, right? In Gen AI, you say that I chat something, I get everything out of it. That's your expectation from chat, right? When you go into small products, in small products, you don't expect IT to build for you. It will be your own team, your own internal team. You will have every domain, every product will have autonomy on their products. They will follow governance practices. Now, governance will tell you PII data, personal information data. Your PII data should be masked. It's a standard governance policy for every product. Now you will have your own small team, or you will have your own budgeted team parked into the centralized team who build only products for you. So when I say culture change, now culture change is not one centralized team. It'll be a small different teams implementing different products for certain domains, but following the centralized governance. Yeah, it's a lengthy and complex topic, Howard.
Okay. So
Yeah, maybe
Baba,
we can have.
is your question answered? Do you have?
Yes, partially. I think it was I was just looking for in terms of how you actually deal with that, because my thoughts were
That's
maybe
what my understanding is. It's about how does governance take that behavior and change that behavior? I mean, is that your real question?
yeah. So I was thinking of maybe you put this in someone's KPI or something where it is explained and it's clear to them that this is one of the things they have to achieve. I don't know how, but
Actually, there's a concept coming. Yeah, as I mentioned, this data practice management, right? There's a team coming up nowadays. We call it data practice management team. This is a new team. Last time we had data governance and we have data management teams. These two teams used to run this data practice management. Now there's a new team coming, which is called data practice management team. This team will have a blueprint of all the data products. When I say blueprint, that they will know every data product have which kind of data, which kind of technology, what is the blueprint. Because the moment you go into small data product world, you will end up having so many redundant products if you are not on top of it. You will have so many redundant data quality implementation and data governance. Actually, data governance will not be possible without data practice management team. When I say data practice management team, this team is not a governance team. This team are making sure that every data product team is implementing the governance at an enterprise level. So they will make sure and evaluate.
Okay.
Yeah, Carol.
Yeah, hi. I think you're spot on. It's a gap I've seen so many times where, IT have their mandate, DevOps have their mandate, data, there's the business owners, the data owners have their mandate. But that data practice management that has sort of cross-functional view of what all is going on with data needs to be a focus thing. Because with DevOps, what I found is that, people in DevOps will have very clear understanding about the data, maybe even manage the the big data management projects, but they're project focused or support focused. They're not business orientated or product orientated, or it's so I spot on. I 100% agree with you. I think I'm going to start implementing this in my customers now.
Good.
And yeah, a good focus.
Okay.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks.
I like
Thanks,
to
Carol.
jump on this. I like to jump on this one because I'm hearing it and I kind of can understand it. And I think what Caroline was just saying indeed really makes sense on a lot of perspectives. But what I'm seeing is that, like, we had our data teams, right, and data practice management teams, they're all IT driven teams. And the thing is that although we want to say, oh, but these should be business oriented and should whatever, I really, and that's why I love Shane Gibson's work as well, and I think I'm doing that as well, is we need to have that business focus embedded in everything we're doing. And it's not by creating a new kind of team, how valuable it might be, but it should always be, how do we, every single team, even a DevOps team, how do we communicate with the people we're doing actual work for? It should not be an IT-driven thing. Otherwise, it's another layer or another construct we're going to create, at least in my opinion, which is bound to fail.
Okay.
Yeah, but just to add it here, right? The importance of data practice management team become a key. Because do remember that once you have small data products, many teams, remember that in an organization, there is enterprise architect, there is cybersecurity, there is governance. Normally, these are the big pillars in an organization. Now, last time you have one centralized solution, which was talking into these three pillars to fulfill all requirements, right? Now you will have many teams. If you allow many teams to talk to all these three pillars, there will be n number of connections. So that is where this centralized data practice management team, which will have team members for all businesses, subject matter experts, architects, business analysts for each domain, who is managing all these things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was. Yeah, that's.
I'll leave it to you, Howard.
Yeah. I think let's think about it. I think let's continue the discussion online, and certainly in connection. And I'm sure. Have you got anything on your YouTube that talks about this, Mustafa?
Actually, data practice last week or last week we had a session on CDO role. You guys can have a look onto this one where we discuss this data practice management team as well. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thanks everybody. It's now just past 5:30. Thank you very much, Mustafa. Thanks for everything. Thanks everybody. Thank you, William.
So much.
Thank you, Remco. Thank you, Caroline.
Thanks
a lot.
Mustafa.
Thank you.
Really informative. Bye.
Bye.